Welcome back to Property Nirvana, where we focus on member spotlight interviews. I'm Brian Carmody, one of the co-founders, here with John Matheson, my other co-founder. And we are welcoming today Seth Mansur from Genie Solar. And yes, everybody, there is more to real estate investing than just flipping a house. So we're going to talk about that today, new ways for you to open up your portfolio, maybe find and discover something that you that really lights you up, and new ways to make some passive income. One quick caveat to give you a heads up: solar investing, every state has its own rules and regs, right, and incentives. Seth covers Massachusetts, but if you're not from Massachusetts, don't let that put you off. Just learn what is going on out there. And again, if you want to be hooked up with somebody in your state, reach out to us at Property Nirvana and we will take care of you. Okay. John, why don't you take over? And
yeah,
Seth, welcome.
So Brian, everybody knows we love renewable energy, right? And anytime we can take a property and reposition it and improve it with a renewable energy installation like solar, fuel cell, or any of the like, we're always looking for somebody who can guide us through it. Our go-to guy, Seth, right? And we got Seth from Genie Solar Energy here. And I think it's easy enough because Seth is such a wonderful speaker. Why don't you just open up, Seth, and tell the people about yourself, Genie Solar Energy, and what you do there.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure working with you. And for all the listeners and viewers here, so I'm Seth Mansur, Regional Sales Manager here with Genie Solar Energy. Quick background on the company. So our parent company is Genie Energy, and founded in 2004, and Genie Solar Energy is one of a few subsidiaries within the Genie family of companies. And so we have a solar panel manufacturer. We manufacture domestically as well as internationally, as well as some different energy advisory and other avenues. Wound down our oil exploration operations a few years ago. This is where I've been talking about the energy industry transitioning, and Genie is really at the forefront of looking forward and seeing where is the future of energy. Generally speaking, it's not down under our feet in the form of oil, natural gas, really forward-looking, looking up at the sun and the other various renewable energy areas. So, there's going to be a number of areas that we're going to get into here in specifically solar and renewable energy. What I want to really impart are two things. One is curiosity and the other empowerment, where energy is a rapidly evolving industry. It's not the energy industry of our parents and grandparents, a boring big nuclear power plant that produces 1/3 to 50% of all power for an entire state. We're transitioning to a very distributed, dynamic, and at times clunky. And we're going to get into some of the details, but specifically for real estate, there are two ways to think about energy. One is reducing your energy costs and risks related to your property. The other is one of revenue generation. And so as I know you guys have a number of different strategies within the real estate realm, I really like to, on the one hand, keep that high level focus of curiosity and empowerment with energy, because boy, there's so many nooks and crannies. This policy, this site, this county, this specific town has this opportunity. Boy, we could go into the weeds, but without losing people and viewers, John, I know you have a boatload of questions, and let's get into it. Where do you want to start?
Well, so we often get asked what certain things mean, right? So like every industry has its buzzword terms, right? So let's say I'm a building owner. I've got a multifamily, or I've got a commercial building that I rent out, let's say, and I have a rental property, and somebody says to me, oh, your property is behind the meter, right? What is, in the solar world, what does behind the meter mean?
Great question. And that's really the line of demarcation, front of the meter, behind the meter. Behind the meter, if you think about it, right, everybody has one of those round electric meters somewhere on your property. Old school, it's got the dial that just spins traditionally in one direction. That meter might be in your electrical room. It might be the front of your property. Commercial facilities usually have a green box that's a transformer, and the meters is right on there. For multifamily properties, a lot of them are not master metered where there's just one meter for the whole building. You'd have one or more house meters for that commercial real estate. And then you have tenant meters. And depending on how renovations went over the years, boy, the amount of crisscrossing of, well, this wall got knocked down and this, suite got expanded. And some of the messiness of what meter you're on can get a little bit interesting. To get real specific on the behind the meter, if we are looking at your electric bill, your electric needs, that is a behind the meter energy strategy. So if your electric bill is $10,000 a month, we are looking at installing renewable energy on-site or off-site to directly affect your bill. That means the electricity either directly flows into your building, and so that's the BTM, or behind the meter.
Got it. Great. And you started to touch on in front of the meter, right? So I'm a developer, I've got a piece of land, and I want to put those nice little solar panels that we all see driving along on the road, right? And I want to own one of those solar farms, right? That's what I want. I want to drive by and see all that pretty stuff in my field, right? So now I'm going to connect, and you're going to tell me I'm in front of the meter, and why is that?
Excellent. And real quick, so Prism Solar Energy is the subsidiary sister company that manufactures solar panels. The reason I bring up the sample panel is that the same panel that goes on the behind the meter is essentially the same panel that goes on the front of the meter. Mm-hmm. Think of it like a big old erector set, where are we talking 100 panels, 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000? It just kind of builds upon itself. And so whether you're looking at a large tract of land or a 25,000, 10,000 square foot roof, front of the meter can also work. So I gave the example of a behind the meter where it's physically tied into the electricity of the building. A front of the meter is simply on the other side of the meter. So that's on the electricity distribution company's side. That's what we call it, front of the meter versus behind the meter.
There you go.
So a front of the meter, whether we install it, we take a raw piece of land and we put in 5, 10, 500 acres of solar. That's a new meter, front of the meter, right? Getting distributed right into the electric grid. If you have I just had a proposal yesterday where smaller facility and very low electric bill, BTM, behind the meter, simply didn't make sense. And I appreciate their interest and curiosity, saying, well, what else is there, Seth? Well, thankfully here in Massachusetts, about 2/3 of the towns are available for a front of the meter opportunity. So we can install a solar array on their roof, and instead of tying into their building, we tie it on the other side of the meter, a front of the meter, an FOM. And so that's a revenue generation. Think about it like installing or having a red box, DVD rental, a billboard or other. It's just revenue, right?
Apartment building with laundry set, right?
Boom.
Right. I mean, you're just another way to generate revenue on an already cash flowing property that is environmentally responsible, cutting edge in terms of the political landscape, right? Likely to be something that the city permits. There's not a high bar of impediment there because they want this. And you're telling me that I can involve somebody like your company, and they'll come out and they'll help me determine exactly how much I can fit and how much revenue I can make.
Exactly. And if I didn't mention this at the top of the interview, so Genie Solar Energy, we're a turnkey energy contractor. And so what that means is, we're not going to leave you out in the winds to go find some permitting or navigate any one of the 20, 40 different websites, spreadsheets, and criteria by which how you figure this out. So again, imparting that, encouraging people to be curious about what could be done on their property for energy, and empowering them that there is stuff that can be done. Doesn't make sense for all properties at all times. I do want to make that caveat, but there are a lot of properties that have been benefiting. And boy, when you fly into Logan or any airport, the amount of square footage that does not have panels on the roof is astonishing. So we've barely scratched the scratch.
Yeah. So let's say I'm a building owner, right? And I like this idea and I want to explore solar, and I call into Genie Solar, right? What happens next?
Sure. So we're first going to have a very high level conversation. I don't come with preconceived notions of this is the box, this is what we offer, that's it. But rather, who are you as an organization? Are you for-profit, nonprofit? Do you own, or are you a tenant? What's the longevity? What's the life cycle of that property? Are you looking to go ahead and flip it as soon as possible? And we can go down to how commercial real estate can be stabilized and improve the net operating income and improve in terms of cash flow, make that LoopNet income, that LoopNet listing look even better.
Sure does.
Or we can look at it from a long-term, hey, we're a third generation manufacturing firm. We've been here forever. We would like to stay here forever. Energy is our number 3 cost, Seth. What can you do? Well, the next thing after we get through some of those top level questions is generally the next thing is electric bill analysis. And boy, the electric bill, it's convoluted. And it is my understanding from how the utilities structure the electric bills is that it's meant to not be understood by most people,
including me.
Yeah, it might come across as a negative way of looking at it, but boy, virtually everybody that I talked to couldn't tell me exactly every single detail and then how they actually have control over the bill. And one example is people talk about conservation, efficiency, and that's good to go. If a manufacturer, and hopefully this little tangent is helpful for the conversation. If a hotel or a manufacturer uses a burst of energy within a 15-minute window, that one erroneous use of energy will stay on their bill for 12 months in the form of demand charges. So you can turn your lights down all you want, but that one 15-minute interval impacts your bill regardless of if you turn on anything on your property for the next 12 months.
Yep.
And so there's a lot that can be done with energy, and that's part of where we come in at energy from an advisory perspective. Really digging in, seeing where we can provide value to the property, whether it's a behind the meter and or front of the meter, because we can actually do both in certain markets.
Wonderful, wonderful. So next question, I get excited, right? You're going to save me some money. We're going to be green and responsible. We're on our rooftop and we're happy. So then somewhere along the way, there is a cost to doing this. So that cost gets deferred by a lot of fun things, incentives, tax credits, and the like. And then how do I pay for that or finance that? So there's a couple different ways that you can probably break that down for us. So that'll be helpful to everybody here.
Excellent. Differing from a fuel-based energy like propane, oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar effectively is all upfront cost. Sun shows up every day, those photons hit the panels. So instead of thinking about, I have to build the power plant and then feed the power plant regularly, solar, it's virtually all upfront cost. Very small long-term operating costs. So you take for a round number, you take $1 million solar project. That $1 million solar project amortized out over its 35-year lifespan. And we say 35 because that's what the current investment bankers are rating solar projects.
Okay.
Do they stop producing power in 35 years in one day? No.
No.
So there's a variety of ways to think about it. The number one way to think about it is solar is an avoided cost technology. We're not coming in and saying, hey, real estate owner, we would encourage you to spend extra money on some new exciting thing. We're coming in saying, you have an electric bill of $10,000 a month, 120 grand a year, multiply that 5 years, 10, 20, 35 years, right? That's a monthly annual cost that most have just kind of gotten used to, built it into their pro forma. But again, going back to the top line of curiosity and empowerment, I want to empower people to know that $10,000 bill, your monthly bill, does not have to be there forever. You have choices. And so that $10,000 a month, if that is your current bill, we always first encourage and look at the property owner owning the system. We always start there because the internal rate of return, the IRR, compared to mutual funds or other investment vehicles is both significantly higher and also more predictable because of a number of the fixed incentive programs. And so we can take that $10,000 bill, and if that property is looking for immediate cash flow savings, credit qualified, they can figure out, does it make sense for them to pull from business line of credit, access debt, et cetera. And we can structure a deal by which their new cash flow is $9,000 a month, $9,500 a month.
Well, and see, if you're providing the documentation, then the lender conversation can be productive.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, this is how much, and it's no different than if I'm going to redo my boiler, or if I'm going to pave my parking lot or do my roof, I don't get anything back for that. I might get a little more rent because I have a pretty building, but I'm not able to cash flow the parking lot unless I'm charging for parking space now.
Right.
But what you're saying is, if I want to go to my lender, you'll do as a third party the consultation type of workup, and that's something that your company installs. So there's not really any variables left in that construction proposal. And I can go into my lender and say, okay, I need to borrow this much against the building. I like this much of an interest rate. I can put that through the leverage software and figure out what I cover for on a DSCR, which all of our property nirvana people know how to do already. So, but we can cover it. And then I can say, so now the loan is a no-brainer. The loan's a no-brainer because it's a cash flowing asset. We're adding value. We are taking on debt, or we're installing cash. And like you said, we've got multiple contributors to our IRR that day.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought up, the leverage software, where ultimately, right, the art of the deal is in the financial metrics of that transaction. And so going back to the current status is, if the electric bills generally feel out of control, companies pay the bill every month and they're like, okay, we can change out the lights. Okay, great. We did the LED. I guess that's it. There's more that can be done.
Yep.
And, just quick tangent here, right? September 24th, and the natural gas prices in Europe and Asia tripled. It's over 300% higher. It's going into the winter months where natural gas is competing for generating electricity and heating homes and businesses and industrial processes. So when you're relying on those external forms of energy, you are at the whims of the market.
It's a variable and it's hard. And when you do apartment building investing or any kind of cash flow investing, you tend to be a little bit, if you're taking rents, you're a little more long-term horizon oriented. Then flipping, let's say, which you can use solar for to enhance your value, as you said, in the front end. But if I'm running a 20-year pro forma build out on an apartment building, and if my source is natural gas, I can only see 10 years into the future on a natural gas futures market. What is gas in 12 years, Seth?
It's a great question.
Now, what's the price? What's the price of the sun now?
Right.
Didn't change.
Exactly. And on the spot market, what's the price of natural gas tomorrow, next month?
Well, that I can probably hedge, right? That I can, but I'm not, if I want to own a building till I've paid it off.
Yeah.
and I want to have the ability to cash flow it in the meantime and get to that principal faster. And I work with someone like you to figure out the energy side of that. I don't have a variable in 12 years like I do with gas. You were so right to bring that up.
Thank you. And so let's say, you have a building, $20 million property, and the solar to offset that building's electricity. Let's take the entire building's electrical needs. And let's maybe even roll in some of the things that can be electrified. Maybe add some mini splits or other electricity versus relying on that natural gas. So that $1 million cost include the number of things that can stabilize the property's expenses. So now you're going out, you're plugging in the leverage software. You're not buying a $20 million building. You're doing 21 million, right? So now, okay, I'm paying $1 million extra for this building. Does that make sense? Look at the short, medium, and long-term cash flow. Short term, your cash flow positive because you can, depending on what your debt rates are, right? 3, 4, 5%, whatever that number is. If it's construction, hard money, even at 8 to 12%. Solar, right? It's just a little bit longer, a few months or a couple of years, adding on to the ROI, return on investment of the project. Ultimately, you're looking at anywhere from if you can consume those tax credits efficiently, you're looking at anywhere from generally a 3 to 6 year payback. Can be more aggressive, can be a little longer depending on some different terms, but you've stabilized your property in a way that other commercial real estate investors may not be considering.
Well, in those numbers, they can start at 200,000 and just be another 10,000. They can be 2 million. So all those numbers all translate across every zero spectrum that you just outlined. Absolutely love it. So we know that we're going to be able to look at our properties and make money with a renewable energy installation if our property is suitable. If it's not, then we look for different ways. And that's and as you sum that up. So the industry looks like it's got a positive upside.
Yep.
There's obviously things coming in solar. You guys even have a panel now, which takes in light from both sides, the bifacial panel, right?
Exactly.
You see some new technologies coming, right? I mean, where do you see this industry in 10 years?
What's really interesting is solar is an old technology, fundamentally. First off, it's an American technology. Yep. As an 8-year vet of the Marine Corps, it really warms my heart that solar is an American technology.
Great.
We invented it. It has only been since about 2006 that it's been commercially active. The last 5-10 years, it's been really robust. From a national security perspective, having solar distributed all over the place really decreases our national security risk. Yep. So building owners, this is where solar is not a one-dimensional offering. If we just think about solar from financial metrics, I talk P&L statements with companies all the time. And ultimately, it's the P&L, it's the economic decision that drives most solar conversations.
Yep.
Let's be clear about it. Now, where we are in 2021, the UN has recently released their IPCC climate change report, and really the consensus is, okay, yep, we're making an impact on the environment. And one of the biggest things we can do is shift over to renewable energy. There's a lot of things that are messy. Agriculture, there are answers to it, but boy, it's tough.
Yep.
When it comes to energy, it's a rather clean option, literally. And so from where we are and where we're going, the technology is so bankable. If we were back in 2008 when Obama launched the stimulus and really trying to get green energy, green jobs, boy, it was still kind of nascent.
Yep.
The technology was robust, but now fast forward 2021, the technology is bankable. Now, what we're going to see is additional improvements. We're at 99.23% efficiency for converting the power to electricity. Where I see some things going, one is batteries. Batteries today, depending on the facility, boy, they can really do wonders. They can shape your load. And what I mean by shaping the load is when Bill, the facility manager, goes in, 6 a.m., turns on machines, lunch break, dip in energy, afternoon use, and then things go down at night. Whereas a real estate, multifamily property, you have a different load profile.
Yeah.
Batteries can take that power and release that power to really buffer it.
Nice.
And so in terms of technology, batteries are, batteries I like to call the bacon of the grid, of just make everything better.
It's so true. It's so true. Brian, I've been having a ball here. Do you have anything you want to add here with Seth?
No, that storage is, once that's all figured out in manageable, that's going to be a game changer when it's really deployed. I mean, I know we can do it now, but when it's really accessible and deployed, that's gonna make everyone's day, because then it's gonna almost equalize installations in property investments in Massachusetts to Arizona. Because at least you can capture and save that energy and use it through the night. So, Seth, can you talk a little bit about just again at a high level? And I know you guys sort of touched on this, but just one more time, because this is what typically new investors are confused about, is who owns the costs in different things. So in different scenarios. So let's say, for example, let's just take, we've got a lot of multifamily apartment investors in property in Nevada. They already own a building. It's got, let's say 60 apartments in it. So it's a nice big rooftop, and it's a flat rooftop, and it's pretty easy, and they're just not using it. So kind of like John said earlier, the laundry example, putting in laundry is obviously going to be a moneymaker. So somebody calls you up and gets solar panels put on their roof. Who is, they've already owned the property for a while, and where is that, who's paying for that at that point?
Great question. And again, this goes back to that curiosity empowerment. It's, great. We have a property owner curious what can be done. There's two ways we could go. We go behind the meter, and we could say, okay, this apartment complex, let's knock out the house bill. And for some apartment complexes, that house account is in the tens of thousands of dollars a month. Generally, I've seen a number of office buildings and others that really take a lot of the common area, and boy, there's a significant electrical load. So property owner manages owns and is responsible for the electric bill, whereas all the tenants are on a triple net, right? They pay the electric bill. It might only make sense to design a project, offset that electric bill. And again, we at Genie Solar advocate that the property owner first looks at the opportunity to first own that asset. If they are in a position where they can efficiently consume the tax credits and accelerated depreciation, that can represent about 52% of the transaction value in year one. And then they get all the additional incentives depending on the market.
Yep.
The other strategy is, there's a couple. The other is we could look at the whole facility and look at potentially master metering the whole facility. And then solar becomes an amenity. It becomes a differentiation for that property. So if a potential renter, whether it's commercial client or residential, they're looking at a bunch of different opportunities and where they're going to lease.
Yep.
And John, as you mentioned, right, the trade winds are going in the form of solar, green, clean, people trying to do the right thing, or they just want to save money. Yep. Well, I could become a tenant in this industrial park over here. There's already solar installed. I'm going to get 5% discount on my electric bill and be green. So on my website, even though I'm only a tenant, I can put a nice, legitimate, we are powered by green energy.
Love it.
Yep.
I'm taking notes, Seth.
Yep. Love it.
And then that
Yes.
third strategy, just to wrap it up, is the front of the meter strategy, where the going down the path of renegotiating rents, lease agreements. On the one hand, right, there's some brain damage, and for some properties it makes sense, and there's an appetite and interest to go down that route. Other times, if the properties just flip over really too fast, they just don't see it as a value add for their tenant base. Not a problem at all. In a market like Massachusetts, you have a front of the meter revenue strategy where 10,000 square feet and above, generally speaking, it does make sense to look at that revenue route. And instead of having a roof purely as a liability where you got to go ahead and maintain it, that roof turns into a revenue generating asset.
Right.
And so if you're 100% occupied, now you're 106% occupied
You're
because
essentially leasing that
solar's a new
space.
tenant.
Yep. Solar's in town. Great. Thanks.
Love
I know you covered that a bit this earlier in the talk, but then, we covered a lot of other things too. And it's just so important to pull that all together for people too, because I know that's
Absolutely.
a key question. So good.
Oh yeah, Brian, that's our next discussion with Seth, a little deeper dive into solar as a tenant.
Yes.
I
love it.
love that buzzword. That's
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep.
Right on.
Right. I mean, look, you
Absolutely.
can do the same thing we haven't talked about it, but storage units, for example, a lot of storage unit investors out there.
Yep.
And nobody, they're not leasing their roofs, right? So lease that roof
and
space.
solar on top of a storage facility, and you
Yep.
start marketing yourself that way. Yeah. And it's been done. So there's templates out there for it.
Yep.
Another day. Right. This has been
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, every property has interesting nuances, opportunities, and limitations. It could be related to the electricity availability at the site, whether there's single phase or three phase, one wire or a lot of wires outside your property. Depending on what utility you're in. Are you in a municipal where, some municipalities have managed it very well, super low energy costs. Brian, you're right where you are in Princeton. You have one of the highest electricity costs in the state. Your town just made a bad deal. And to be clear, right, that was wind and solar. So if this is why, working with experts like John and Brian are awesome, because they understand really the financial back end of real estate transactions. And so there's a lot of different things that can be done on properties. And depending on the cycle, where you're at in terms of the property, where you're at for utility, what the incentives are, there's a lot of different things that can be done. And it might be a no, not now. But then, instead of having a question mark of, am I leaving value on the table? You can know you've robustly checked the box, and you're going to check in with, John, Seth, and Brian in 6 months, in 2 years, or we are going to reach back out with your permission, of course, and say, hey, remember when we reached out, we first took a look September 2021, and we said, hey, the markets are just, but then there was this utility policy, there was this regulatory change, or this other nuance. Great, hey, property owner, because we had that baseline discussion, we think that there's a valid opportunity to decrease your costs and risk and or increase revenue from your property through renewable energy. And we haven't even touched on electric vehicle chargers.
No.
A lot of buzz there, a lot of nuance, but it is, again, part of an overarching energy strategy that, with Genie Solar, we can help you kind of circle the wagons on all your categories of energy on the property.
So another thing to have Seth back for, Brian, is the EV charging station discussion, which we really need to have. That is fantastic. I'm writing that down, Seth.
Yep.
So I'm just writing down stuff to bring you back for. This has been fantastic. I think our audience got a lot. There's a lot to unpack here, but you're very accessible at Genie Solar, which is great. So as people come up with needs, we'll be able to post where they can connect with you, which is fantastic. Brian, I'm good with Seth. You have anything to close out with?
Nope. Just thank you, Seth. And I agree. Just I'll close out to the members. like everything else we do at Property Nirvana, this is all about learning and getting you coached and in good position to get good at something. And Seth is one more resource, and his whole company, really, no matter where you are in the country, is a great consultant to kind of pull in some additional revenue streams into your strategy. So,
Yeah, love
Seth,
it.
thank you, man.
Well,
Seth,
gents,
thank you.
really appreciate the opportunity. It's been a pleasure, reviewing properties, different strategies, and looking forward to continue the discussion. Energy is ever evolving, but again, just want to impart that curiosity and empowerment, where you have a lot of choices and things that can be done with energy, and it'll either be you or might be one of your competitors down the street that is leveraging energy in a way that you're not. So let's open the book, let's have the conversation. Let's go beyond the superficial, just a lighting energy audit, and let's actually dig into your energy strategy and what can be done on your property. So thank you, gentlemen, for the opportunity,
Well
and
said.
hope it's been helpful for the audience.
It has. Thank you,
Awesome.
Seth. Well said, buddy. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.